Hello, thanks for joining us here on Boulder Bookstore's YouTube channel, and happy Independent Bookstore Day. To celebrate this year, we've reached out to some of our favorite local authors and asked them to answer some questions for us on video. And we are so fortunate here in Boulder that we've got tons of great local authors, so we've actually had to split this up into multiple videos. And of course, we've got copies of all these authors' books in the store, and you'll find, for each video, for the authors featured in that video, you'll find links to their books in the description below. So please watch the video, and hopefully you enjoy it as much as we have. Thanks.
Hi, Boulder Bookstore. Hi, readers. I'm Martha Freeman. I write books for children. I live about 13 blocks, I just counted, from Boulder Bookstore right here in Boulder. And I'm delighted to answer a few questions for you today. Hope it's helpful. What inspired you to become a writer? There's something called esprit de l'escalier, which means wit of the staircase. That's a clever remark you think of after the party's over. I am the queen of these clever remarks, and I hate waste. So one thing about being a writer is it enables you to come up with those clever remarks in relative peace and calm after the party's over, rather than having to think of them on the spur of the moment like the truly clever people do. What's the weirdest or funniest thing a fan has ever said or written to you? There have been a lot over the years. I get a lot of letters from kids because I write children's books, but one of the ones that comes to mind that's recent is based on this book, which I happen to have right here, Campfire Cookies. It's part of the Secret Cookie Club trilogy. In Campfire Cookies, the campfire is at a summer camp called Orm Ranch in Mare, Arizona, which is the high Arizona desert. And a mom was reading this book to her daughter, I believe, and recognized the camp as one that we both attended when we were children. And she said that she was so grateful to have this book because it brought back such fond memories of summer camp, especially the tarantulas. So you'll have to read the book to find out how the tarantulas figure. What do I love most about Colorado and Boulder? Two things. The weather, all this dry air, all that beautiful sunshine, even on a cold winter day that warms you right up through your Patagonia fleece. I think this place has the best weather of any place I've ever lived, and I've lived a lot of places. It's also so dry, you can hang your laundry in your closet. You don't have to put it in the clothes dryer. Think of the ecological sense that makes. Another thing, hikes. You can walk beyond Boulder Bookstore to the west and just keep going a very short way and find yourself on a trail and be hiking into the beautiful mountains. It's such a wonderful place to live for the outdoors and the wonderful, friendly outdoor weather. What's the nicest thing someone has said to you or done for you during the pandemic? I think the nicest thing anyone has said to me is, come join a few of our most responsible friends in the backyard, and we will sit 6 feet apart, and we will wear masks, and we will have an actual live conversation. I've been blessed to have several friends who've asked me this question over the course of the pandemic, and it has made it a much more bearable experience than it might have been. Last question, and certainly the most important. What do independent bookstores mean to me? Independent bookstores mean capitalism at its finest. They are literally the marketplace of ideas and part of the broader marketplace of ideas. Each independent bookstore offers a unique experience based on the variety of viewpoints of its booksellers. It's a no-brainer that independent bookstores are important mainstays of whatever shopping district they happen to be located in. But even more than that, they are important mainstays of democracy and even bigger of society. And I know that they are very important to my own personal well-being.
Hi, I'm Andrea Wang, author of picture books and middle grade novels. I was inspired to become a writer when I was very young because I was a shy kid and spent most of my time reading. Books were actually my first friends, and it was natural for me then to move from reading books to wanting to write my own stories. As a matter of fact, I have a handmade book from when I was 9, where I wrote my own author's bio that said I wanted to become a writer when I grew up. So it's been a dream of mine for a very long time. The most fun thing a fan has ever done for me was to wear ramen-themed clothing to a school event. I was the presenting author, and a student came in wearing a sweatshirt that was printed with the front of a package of instant ramen over the front of it. And my second picture book was all about the invention of instant ramen. So I was super happy to see this. We made eye contact and smiled at each other, and it was wonderful to have this moment of connection with a young reader. What I love most about Colorado are all of the green spaces and open spaces that are tucked away into so many neighborhoods. It really feels like you don't have to go very far to find a park or a hiking trail to enjoy the outdoors. It really makes nature so much more accessible and convenient. The nicest thing someone has done for me during the pandemic was to send me flowers for the release of my newest book, which happened recently. And I know it's something that people did a lot in the before times, but I just felt like it was such a sweet gesture. And it came at a time when I really needed to see something bright and colorful and alive during this time when we're all sort of stuck inside and trying to continue to be safe. Most of all, what independent bookstores mean to me is community. They're not just places where you buy books, but they're places where you can talk to booksellers to get personalized recommendations, because not all books show up on bestseller lists or award lists. But there are so many books out there that are perfect for you, and the bookseller can make those recommendations. Independent bookstores also are places where you can meet other authors and illustrators, either in person or virtually these days. And as an author myself, it has really been helpful to connect me to educators and to readers during the pandemic. So in so many ways, independent bookstores have been a lifeline for me. And I want to thank Boulder Bookstore and all of its patrons for all their support, and happy Independent Bookstore Day.
I was first inspired to become a writer in elementary school. I had wonderful teachers who were extremely supportive of all of our creative writing efforts, and they brought poets into our classroom every week. And the poets gave us prompts and taught us different ways of playing with words on the page. And we wrote poems and we read poems to each other, and I've been hooked ever since. The weirdest thing for sure that has happened to me since I have been a published author has been the overtures on Instagram that I have received from a number of different people. I have to assume that they're bots. I really hope that they're bots. But yeah, it's weird and yeah. I love living in Colorado. I chose to make Colorado my home almost 30 years ago, and I raised my daughter here. And I love everything about it. I love the natural beauty. I love hearing meadowlarks out my window. I love seeing the sunset over the mountains. I love hiking in the forest. I can't imagine a better place to live, and I can't imagine better people to be living among. I think the nicest thing that someone did for me during the pandemic was when my darling husband chose to celebrate my book launch in January by having a cake made in the shape of my book with the cover on the top of the cake. And it was such a lovely surprise and such a sweet gesture. And it really made the book launch special. Independent bookstores mean everything to me. My first job after graduate school was working in an independent bookstore. And I can't imagine living in a town that didn't have an independent bookstore. For me, that's a priority when I'm looking at someplace that I think I might want to live. And when I travel, I always seek out the independent bookstores. My husband and I have even planned road trips where we've planned our journey from town to town based on where independent bookstores were. We always go in, we always buy several things. I try to buy something by a local author. I always buy something from the poetry section because it tends to be a little bit overlooked. And I try to buy something from the children's section. And I can't imagine a world without independent bookstores.
I've always been a writer. I made handmade books when I was 6 or 7. I was a big reader as a child. I love stories. And being a writer, or writing itself, I think, and reaching out to people, I think that's an act of hope. And for my newest YA series, Rise of the Red Hand, I wanted to see South Asian teens in a science fiction futuristic setting. I wanted to broaden the landscape of science fiction. I think the weirdest or funniest thing that someone said thank you to me about writing girls that kick ass in Rise of the Red Hand. What I love about living in Colorado, or Boulder specifically, is that every few weeks and we still find a new trail to hike that we've never seen before, or even if it's a trail that we've hiked before previously, it looks different because the seasons change the landscape so drastically. The nicest thing someone said to me, I think it wasn't just a single person, it's a collective group. My debut group called the 21ders. 21 is the number, and then DERS. There's a website. We've all debuted our middle grade and young adult novels this year together, and having them be so supportive and kind has been amazing. I used to write at the coffee shop next to Boulder Bookstore when there was one, and it's just about creating community. That bookstore, Boulder Bookstore, is so important because it's a place that we can talk to booksellers, that we can reach out and to our communities. I, like so many authors, need to be near books as much as possible, and stories are how we humans find our way. And independent bookstores and booksellers support our small communities. They're just vital. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Crespo and I write picture books. My most recent books are Lee and Louise, Who Has More, illustrated by Giovanna Medeiros. Lee and Louise is a 2021 Mathical Book winner. And also Hello Tree, illustrated by the wonderful Dal Pomeroy, who also lives here in Colorado. Hello Tree will be out in September of 2021. And it tells the story of the relationship between a girl and a tree and the wildfire that threatens it. It is an all-Colorado book because it was created by 2 Colorado residents and inspired by the devastating 2013 Black Forest Fire in Colorado. Well, I was inspired to write picture books when sitting at a public library in Indiana reading to my daughter. I hardly ever found any books featuring Brazilian characters. I am originally from Brazil. And the few I found were usually about sport figures, mainly soccer players. 7 years later, when my son was born, nothing had really changed, so I decided to give it a try and ended up writing The Sock Thief, a soccer story, illustrated by Nina Gonzalez. The next question is, what is the weirdest or funniest thing a fan has ever said or written to you? That is a really hard question. I'm not 100% sure. I have been asked many funny questions during school visits. It is hard to think of one specific, of the funniest or the weirdest one. I have been asked how much money I make, and if I like ice cream. And I remember surprising everyone when I told them I am not a big fan of ice cream. The next question was, what do you love most about Colorado? That is actually a very easy question. What I love most about Colorado is the nature. There's so many beautiful free hikes here, so many forests, so many open spaces. I love hiking at the regional park close to my house. I love the smell of snow-covered pine needles. It's so fresh. I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I never got used to snow, but snow-covered pine needles are one of my favorite things. What is the nicest thing someone has said to you or done for you during the pandemic? So this wasn't only during the pandemic, but continued throughout the pandemic. Every time there is a snowstorm, my front door neighbor uses his snowblower to clean my driveway. Every time. I don't know if he knows how much I hate snow, but I know that I am extremely thankful to him for doing that even during the pandemic. And the last question was, what do independent bookstores mean to you? That is an easy one as well. To me, independent bookstores are those places where you can go to find like-minded people, people who love books, adults who read picture books for pleasure even when no children are around, and people who appreciate how important it is to share the love of reading and empower future generations.
So what inspired me to be a writer? I was partly inspired to be a writer by my grandfather, who would send beautiful illustrated picture books every year for Christmas. And I don't know, I collected them and kept them and thought about them a lot, but I never thought it was a real job until after college, when I finally met a few people who were authors, and I realized that this was something I could do with my life. What's the weirdest or funniest thing that a fan has ever said? This isn't a specific thing, but this is something that sometimes people will say when they discover that I'm a children's book author. They will say, "Have you written anything that I would know?" Which always makes me laugh, because I have no idea. I have no idea what you've read, and maybe, I hope so. It's definitely not Where the Wild Things Are or The Cat in the Hat, so that's a funny response I get. What do I love most about Colorado and Boulder? I was born in Boulder and I grew up in Longmont, so this place is really dear to my heart in many ways. But the thing I love the most is probably having access to nature nearby. Just this year, I had a bobcat in my yard, and we frequently see, coyotes and bears and things like that. And having the open space for hikes has been a really wonderful thing throughout this pandemic, just being able to get outside. What's the nicest thing someone has done or said during the pandemic? Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that this pandemic year has been really hard for a lot of people, and it's just been really tough. But one of the best things to come out of it for me has been the chance to get to know my neighbors a little bit more. I have a lovely community in my neighborhood. Everybody's been so supportive, and my neighbors have just done so many things that cheer me up and make me feel better about the world. There's one of my neighbors who will just bring flowers around to people's houses. It's just like the most lovely thing. Or another neighbor, I think it was my neighbor, I don't actually know who did this, but my daughter the other day was pretending to be a monkey in the tree. She's 4. And when we came home later, someone had tied up bananas in the tree, much to her delight. So stuff like that just makes us laugh and keeps us cheerful. That's been a really wonderful thing. What do independent bookstores mean to me? Independent bookstores are the beating heart of the community for authors. These are books that are handpicked by people who know books, who care about their readers, who know their community. It's a whole world away from an online algorithm, and it's all about getting the right book into the hands of the right reader, and about bringing joy to people, and not just about making money for some faceless corporation. So it's a really important thing for authors, it's an important thing for the community, and I'm really grateful to independent bookstores for all that they do.